If there's one thing that defines the classic British garden, then it's the lawn. Many of us dream of a patch of grass that is as smooth and lush as a bowling green. But let's be honest, this is what most of us have to deal with. Although there are some simple steps you can take to improve your grass. The first thing to do is give it a thorough raking. This removes all the unwanted moss and dead grass, encouraging fresh growth. Now it's time for the cutting. I'm going to set it onto its highest cutting setting, which means it's not going to scalp the lawn for this first cut. But now I've exposed some unsightly bare patches. These can either be returfed or, in this case, reseeded. Prick over the surface with a fork. Add topsoil, sow the seed evenly, cover with sifted soil and water in. But if you really want your lawn to improve over time, you need to feed it. There are different feed and weed products for different seasons, so make sure you use the right one. When applying, the grass should be dry but the soil moist. And if it doesn't rain for a couple of days, get the hose pipe out onto it. One, to water in the fertiliser, and of course, activate the weed killer. Keeping a lawn in tip-top shape does take effort, but by following a basic routine of care, your grass can achieve its full potential.
If you want to make a new lawn, there are two ways to do it. One is by sowing grass seed, and the best two times for that are May and September. May, so that it's established and growing before the heat of the summer, and September, after the summer, grows on through autumn. But you can lay turf for an instant lawn at almost any time of year, provided the ground isn't frozen or muddy. Soil preparation for the two is exactly the same. What I've done here is I've shuffled over it with my feet to firm it, and then raked it so that it's even and level. Don't worry about odd little stones, but any big ones take out. And then work on the turf you've already laid on a board so your feet aren't scuffling it all about. And it then goes down onto the soil, and you need to pull it really tightly up to the other turf so that you cannot see the join. These gaps are no good at all. You want to boot it up there and then spin it out, and you'll notice here is the previous join. No join there, so you're laying it brick fashion. So these joints are really butted closer together. This bit of earth in between doesn't matter, just rub it all in. But the most important thing about turf is order it when you know you can lay it. It doesn't need to be stacked for several days because it'll turn the colour of custard. The most it needs to be sitting and stacked for is 2 days. So if you want to do your turfing at the weekend, as most people do, make sure you order it on the first part of the week for delivery right at the end, Friday or Saturday, and you get straight on the ground and lay it. And when you've done that bit, you can move your board forward and keep going forwards until you get to the very end. Then you can cut the edge, keep on it for a few days, water it if it's dry. Hey presto, instant lawn.
The first step in creating a garden like this is to use matching materials or colours in different parts of the garden to give it a unified look. Here, they've painted all the wood the same colour and used matching brick edging around the lawn. Step 2 is to create a set of richly planted beds. Often, in a conventional garden, you'll find boring narrow borders around a huge expanse of lawn. But here, they've created curved shapes that are centre stage.
So what do? Just get out there with your spade and think, oh, I'll cut a pleasing shaped bed out here. This'll be okay. Oh, no. Therein danger lies. You want something that'll help you plan the shape. Get yourself a hose pipe. Lay it in the sun, because that way it's pliable, and if you're doing this job in winter, run some hot water through it. Makes it soft. You can then mark out exactly the curve that you want so that it's nice and crisp and even, and then get yourself what's called kiln-dried sand. You can buy it in bags. It's really fine running sand, almost like you get in an egg timer. Put it in an old wine bottle and run it where you want your bed to be. When you've done that, you can take up your hose pipe, take up your spade and start cutting.
So you've got the shape of your bed and you've dug it. What then do you put in it? Look for plants that will suit its situation. In shade, for instance, bright flowers tend not to do terribly well, but hostas and ferns will be very happy. If you've got room for 6 plants, don't get 6 different ones. 3 hostas and 3 ferns will give you much more impact. And when you're wanting a bit of stature in a bed, Japanese maples are wonderfully elegant and will never outgrow a small garden. They'll look good for 6 or 7 months of the year. If you get a bit of clipped topiary, this is box, you can also use yew, then this will look brilliant from January to December. It always pays to know your soil before choosing your plants, as Francis explains.
Now, there are 1,800 different soil types in the UK alone, but they're all made up of 3 components and whatever rock you happen to have around. So the first soil type is sand. You can always tell what soil type you have by getting it wet. So with sand, if you try and roll it, it will just disintegrate in your hands and not do anything at all. Secondly, silt. And when you get this one wet, you'll find that you can roll it sort of into a sausage shape. But if you try to then connect the 2 ends of that sausage, it splits in the middle. Silty soils are good because they hold on to some moisture, but they still allow it to drain through. And the last soil type, which is actually what we have here, is clay. And if you get this one wet, you can roll it into a sausage and then turn that sausage into a donut. So clay can be a really tough soil to work with because it gets really wet and it doesn't let water drain away, which can cause waterlogging, which plants don't like. But in the summer, it will bake solidly and be as hard as rock. So again, roots can't get through and plants can really struggle.
Now, a big garden needs a big compost heap, but even a small garden can fit in one like this. Make it a good metre square. Any smaller and it tends to dry out. And also a good framework. This is a shop-bought one, but it stops the compost heap from slithering and sliding all the way across your garden. What do you put in? Your vegetable waste, annual weeds, soft prunings from flowers, and lawn mowings. No thick-rooted weeds, because they might survive. No food products from the house. No bread, no cooked vegetables. Potato peelings are OK. And crushed eggshells are fine. They won't rot down, but they'll give it a bit of body. Put a hose pipe on it in really dry weather. But the rest of the time, a piece of old carpet like this, just chuck it over the top. And that will stop the sun's rays from scorching it. It takes a few months for your compost to be ready, but once you get started, you'll be on a roll.
Now, I know it seems the logical thing to do, but it's amazing how many people don't prep a bed properly before you're going to plant it up. Digging it over like this at least 3 times just makes the planting so much easier, and also the new roots of the plants will get through the soil and anchor themselves in much quicker. This bed is right next to where Irene will have her washing lines. And in the olden days, people used to grow really beautiful scented plants near the washing in order to fragrance the washing. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm putting lots of fragrant things in the hope that it will permeate her clean clothes, and hopefully she might get a bit more money for them.
She's planting a Philadelphus, also known as the mock orange due to its citrus fragrance. It can grow quite big, so we'll need some thinning out of old stems after flowering to stop it getting unruly.
We'll keep it a nice height where the flowers can be enjoyed and perfectly fragrance Irene's washing.
And next to that, she's adding some perfumed climbers.
This is a honeysuckle, and really it's got the most fantastic smell. Very hard to beat in the garden. It also has a beautiful orange and pink flower to it. Really nice. It might seem odd that I'm putting in the middle of the board like this, but actually I've got some obelisks to go in to give me some great height, so it'll even fragrance the washing further up the line. I also love it because it reminds me of my mum.
Medieval bed linen, if you were posh, was dried directly on aromatic herbs like lavender and rosemary. But even now, if you've the room, nothing beats line-dried laundry from a scented spot like this.
Do you know what? I think that looks really lovely. I'd be pretty thrilled. If I was Irene's washing, a whole dedicated bed to make you smell good.
This ladder may have looked pretty strange, just sticking up out of the ground. It was actually here when I moved in, and I've decided to make a feature out of it, so I painted it, postcreted it into the ground, and now I am using it as a support for this, my hop. Now, hops are a traditional crop in Kent because, of course, we like beer here, but also you can eat it too. You can eat the little shoots that come up out of the ground or the leaves.
It's the egg-shaped cones or hops that are produced in early June that this clima's known for. By September, when they've dried, they can be used for beer.
Now that I've got the string up, it's time to actually twiddle the vine, as it's called.
You only need to wrap a few shoots around your support. The rest can be cut off.
And there we go. That is it, all tied, all pruned and ready to grow. Midsummer is the perfect time to add some hot colour to your beds. But if you're worried about clashing shades, then keep it simple. I'm going to show you how to create a carefree and striking border using just 2 colours, green and orange. The trick to creating an informal style is not to stick to one type of plant. So I'm mixing different shades and textures of green and using them as a base colour against which the orange plants will really pop. At the back of this border, I'm putting these beautiful foxtail lilies. They're tall spires of orange flowers and they'll really add drama and height and colour to the back. But when you're planting, make sure you put some grit in the bottom of the hole because they don't like to get too wet. They'll rot the tubers at the bottom. And also make sure that the sun can really bake those tubers in the summer to guarantee flowers year after year. To complement the lily, I'm adding tall feather reed grass. When you're planting next to a hedge like this, make sure you leave enough room between the plants and the hedge so that you can clip it. Through the middle of the border, I'm planting Mexican feathergrass, through which glimpses of orange will be visible. And this orange geum does that beautifully. It's called Totally Tangerine, and you can see why. Although I'm planting them mainly in the middle, these flowers are going to hang all around just to create accents of orange throughout the whole border and fill it with colour. At the front, I'm adding the acid green of Alchemilla mollis. Mollis means soft because it's got this really soft foliage. As well as that, it's got lovely, bright, zingy flowers. And it makes a really good front edge of a border. And finally, a different type of orange. It's really easy to be blinkered when you're making a colour-themed border into only thinking about flowers. And actually, foliage is just as important and can tie the whole space together. So to fit with our colour theme, I've got this heuchera, and it's called Marmalade. And of course, the great thing about limiting yourself to green and just one other colour is that it takes all the stress away because you don't have to worry anymore about clashing colours or things not matching. So there it is, all the simple sophistication of a formal border, but with the fun and frivolity of a cottage garden bed.
Now, I'll be quite honest with you, on this light sandy soil, these hydrangeas are going to need a trickle line coming through. I couldn't resist using these dramatic bursts of white flower to give real impact. So provided we get the irrigation line through here, which makes sure they don't go short of water, and that's something that's key with all hydrangeas. If you've got really heavy soil, they will love you. Their leaves are very, very fleshy, and that flesh needs to be kept that way. If they dry out, they just go crisp and they stop growing. This one here is, I think, perhaps my all-time favourite hydrangea. She has these delicate mop heads. She's called Annabelle. And in many gardens, she does need a bit of support, a good iron hoop around her, just to keep her slightly corseted and stop her flopping. Then you get the lace caps, really succulent leaves on these, and flowers which are large on the outside and tiny on the inside. These never grow any bigger. When it comes to pruning with hydrangeas, it's relatively easy. Let the flowers die off and you can leave them on through the winter going brown, because if you look underneath them you'll see a pair of fat buds and the dead flower head in the middle. That dead flower head can offer a bit of frost protection to the 2 topmost buds, which are going to produce next year's flowers. Cut back too hard, you lose the blooms, so just be a little bit patient when it comes to pruning your faded hydrangeas. I suppose the flower which typifies a cottage garden is the rose in all its different forms, and gosh, are there some different forms. This is what we call a bush rose, and this is a floribunda or cluster flowered. The flowers open at the top, unlike the hybrid teas or large flowered bush roses, which make those classic cabbages. Lovely thing about these, they don't grow too high, typically waist to chest high if they're getting a bit on the leggy side. Then you get the shrub roses as opposed to the bushes. We get modern ones of these now. The problem with the old shrub roses was they had one season of flowering. End of June, beginning of July, that was it for the year. Now with these new English roses from David Austin, they flower off and on right the way through the summer. If you've got not much room at all, you can use patio roses. These stay at around about knee height or slightly less. And if you've got a wall or a fence to cover, climbing roses like this one, or ramblers, are the ones that have the long stems, all of them contributing colour and scent to a cottage garden. The major pruning of roses takes place in winter, any time between November and March. But it's a good idea to keep going over your bushes, deadheading them, and that means taking off the faded flowers. If you've got a head like this, which has got one faded bloom in the centre, simply snip that out. That'll let all those other buds open properly. But once all the flowers have faded on the stem, you can take that stem a little bit further back, a good 6 to 9 inches. That'll encourage the buds that are left behind to sprout, and you should get another show of flowers later in the summer.
So in this area, under the Scots pine, I'm planting lots of woodland plants. So I've put in this geranium macrorhizum, and this is perfect for dry shade. It will romp away, it flowers for months, and it kind of creates a semi-evergreen carpet, which is what we want because it's low maintenance and it keeps the weeds down. I've also got some heather, and there are a couple of different varieties of heather. You can get spring-summer flowering varieties or autumn-winter flowering varieties. So if you put in a nice mixture, you'll have some colour all year, which is what I've done here. And then another favourite of mine is this tiarella, or foam flower, and it's got such delicate flowers and this lovely marbled foliage, and again that will kind of create a lovely carpet along the floor, blocking out any weeds.
The temptation when you're making a scented border, or a spa border as we're calling it here, is to just bung loads of scents in. Oh, but they fight with one another. So if you can try and separate them, it really works. Philadelphus, the mock orange, has the most powerful scent. So we've put that at one end of the border, and you'll probably still be catching it as you go right down there. And then we're coming off. The roses are gentler, but they won't fight with one another. And then stuff that you actually physically have to bruise, like thyme, to release their fragrance.
I don't just want to make it look lovely. I actually want to put things in that are really useful in some way. This lemon verbena, for example, makes a wonderful tea and smells fantastic. And chamomile, really good in tea, very relaxing. It just looks lovely, especially along the front of a bed. It will really sort of drape over the edges and soften everything.
Not all tropical-looking plants are as tender as they appear. This is Trachycarpus fortunei, the Chuzan palm, and it's really incredibly hardy. The ones I saw in that previous garden were only 14 years old, and yet they were huge in Derby. So I'm hoping in Burton-on-Trent, planted at this age, this will be tough enough as well, and it will help to give this garden that tropical feel that we're after. What's quite critical really is the time at which you plant things like this. I would never plant them in autumn, because then before they get their roots into the earth around them, they've got to cope with the winter. Well, at least planting it at this time, in spring, late spring, it will grow away, get itself established before the onset of winter. Tree ferns are not quite so tough, because they do tend in winter, particularly if it snows, to get frosted at the top, and these old fronds will die off. So it's critical that you protect that crown with some straw or bracken held in place, perhaps by wire netting, so it just gives it a bit of lagging. What is important when you buy these is that you look for a tag like this. They come from New Zealand, Australia, Tasmania, and this indicates that they've been taken legitimately. Forest clearance when they're doing it for agriculture. Instead of throwing all these away, they cut them into logs, and send them over here. We buy them and grow them in our gardens. Another hole to dig.
Despite being cut into logs, these tree ferns do grow roots, and if you want to get those big leafy fronds, you need to encourage them with a moist but free-draining, humus-rich soil.
So stand between these two now. I feel as if I'm on a Caribbean island already, in Burton-on-Trent.
How to grow your own when you only have a wall.
Fancy living walls and big vertical gardens used to be seen as a bit out there, and they were also tricky to install and really expensive, but you know what? Things have moved on a bit.
Kate is creating a vertical fruit and veg patch using a living wall system you can buy online.
You can buy this starter kit from about 40 quid, and that gives you 12 planting pockets, which you could use under a window or any tight space really.
The pockets are split into rows of 3 and held in place by battens.
It is pretty straightforward. The bottom one you fasten to the batten, and then the next one up just simply stacks on top. Right.
Katie's bought 4 kits to create a feature on each side of the door.
There we go, they're up. Now for plants.
A living wall can make a dramatic feature, but the pockets you're planting are often small, so Katie's chosen plants that are happy in nooks and crannies.
Now I've got a mixture of all sorts going in here. Flowers as well as edibles, because I do want it to look really pretty. I've got this oregano in the front, it's called green carpet. It's a lovely lime colour, which I really like. And then Bidens, which will give me these pretty daisy-like flowers for most of the summer. And then this is chocolate peppermint, and it smells amazing. I think my daughter's going to particularly like using that in baking and things. And then I've got some strawberries. Now these have got lots of strawberries coming on them and lots of flowers yet to come. And the nice thing is as well, they will tumble beautifully, leaving strawberries at a height where the slugs can't get them, which is an added bonus.
All living walls need regular watering. Once a day is fine.
Now, in order to keep this looking good, a bit of care, little and often, will be best. Any flowers that need deadheading, do so. And any plants that are getting too big and smothering others, cut them back. Oh, it looks jazzy.
For smaller spaces and budgets, you can buy a thinner fabric container for a fraction of the price.
For about £3.50 you can get one of these, and it's just a matter of filling it with compost, pushing the plants through the pockets, and with strawberries and tumbling tomatoes in, it should look really good. Once it's had regular water and feed, the plants will cover this entire bag, you won't even see it. I am so happy with my little green walls. They've got so many edibles in them, look really colourful and cheery. I absolutely love them.